Hey everybody, what's going on out here in the winter wonderland of southwest Missouri, 4 below zero right now. And given this, I don't think there's a better time to talk about today's topic, which is shad kills in the wintertime and how the shad kills affect bass and what you need to do to catch them. And I think I can probably help you guys out quite a bit because I fish probably more in the winter than anybody I know. I do all these instructional jerkbait trips that we're doing for Fish the Moment on our on the water lessons. I fish a ton, all over, this part of the state of Missouri in the wintertime. So I'm real familiar with shad kills, real familiar with what they do to the bass. And today I sort of wanted to shed some light on the whole topic because I think overall a lot of people don't really understand what this does, to the fish. So I think I can maybe, give you a few tips that'll help you out. But hey, before we get started, just wanted to remind everybody that tonight, between 7 and probably about 8:30, Johnny and I have our weekly live podcast. It's going to be on the new Fish the Moment YouTube channel. It's called Fish the Moment Live. So just look it up, Fish the Moment Live. Hope you guys can join us. We're going to be talking tonight, about how cold fronts affect bass in the pre-spawn. Answering a bunch of questions, going to be a good time. Hope to see you there tonight. And also this Thursday, we still have a few spots open for our next virtual seminar, 6 o'clock to 9 p.m. this Thursday on pre-spawn patterns of fishing. It's going to be really good. So anyway, let's get into this whole shad kill deal and, sort of try to shed some light on it if you're not familiar with it. Shad kills are something that occur basically in about any part of the country where the water temperature gets below 45 degrees. And the extent of the shad kill depends on a lot of different variables. For the most part, the shad that are killed in a shad kill a lot of times are the smaller shad. The smaller shad are a lot more sensitive. They're just not very sturdy. And they are the ones that are affected more by the shock of these abrupt temperature changes. And what you have overall is once that water temperature starts to get down around 45 degrees, you have an element of a shad kill beginning. And a lot of it just depends on the part of the country that you're in, because in some parts of the country, 45 degree water is super cold, and in other parts of the country it's not. So it's sort of relative also, to the part of the country that you're fishing in. But what happens is the shad, they start having a hard time and they start struggling, especially the smaller shad, once that water temperature gets around 45 degrees. But if that water temperature drops below 39, that's when you start having a significant shad kill throughout a lake, even with the larger shad population, even with the shad that are above 2 or 3 inches long. A lot of the shads that are killed in the wintertime, or they're the small shad that spawned late in the summer. They're those shad that you see that are an inch and a half long, and they're the ones to go first. But like right now, we have got record low temperatures all over the country. There's ice on a bunch of lakes around the country, even into Texas. So we're going to be experiencing an epic shad kill, right now and moving forward over the next couple weeks. So, the question remains is like, okay, we're going to have the shad kill. What do you need to do to deal with it or take advantage of it or understand it a little bit more? So first of all, what you need to remember is that, and this is probably one of the most important pieces of advice I can give you, is that shad kills do not happen the same all over the lake. In general, from what I found, fishing around this part of the country a lot, you've got specific parts of the lake that are more heavily affected by shad kills than other parts of the lake. And this can depend on a lot of different factors. But the first thing that I want to do is I want to try to find a part of the lake that has the least amount of dead shad visible floating on the surface, because you got two types of dead shad. You got when a shad starts struggling and getting shocked by the cold water, a lot of them sink to the bottom and then they flutter up off the bottom and sink back down. And that's when, they're very catchable a lot of times. And then you have some shad that basically just stay on the surface and they're barely moving and they're struggling all the time. Those are the shad that don't really get eaten by the bass very much. The shad that get eaten by the bass are the ones that are dying, sinking to the bottom, fluttering up. Different parts of the lake are going to have a more extensive shad kill for the most part. In general, and this is not, a solid rule, but it's true many parts of the time, the bigger shad kill that you're going to have is going to be on the lower end of the lake where you have a little bit cleaner water. It seems like to me that the shad are a lot more heavily affected by that lower end of the lake. Normally it's a little bit clearer. Normally the water's a little bit colder down there, and for whatever reason, you have a bigger shad kill on the lower end. So in a situation like this, the first thing I do is I try to gravitate the area that I want to fish more to the mid-lake area. It seems like to me the mid-lake area, it has less dead shad or less dying shad, and then you still have the optimum water clarity as far as in order to catch those fish in the right type of water clarity. As you get further up the river, you lose your water clarity. Even though the water's shallower, maybe a little bit warmer, you just simply don't have, the amount of catchable fish up there until that water temperature starts coming up a little bit. So that's the first thing you need to remember, is concentrate on the mid part of the lake. The second thing you need to realize is that these bass are going to be stuffed. They're going to be full of shad. There's not another time of year that they've got prey that is so accessible to them. They don't have to expel hardly any energy at all, to catch these shad. The bass after a shad kill are most of them are just gorged with shad. So given that, it makes it a little bit more difficult. Fishing during the shad kill, for me, is one of the toughest times of the winter time to catch bass. And that's why I'm looking for that part of the lake that doesn't have a bigger shad kill. But when you get into this area, the best ways to catch them for me is going to a small jerkbait. This is when I like to downsize my jerkbait. This is when I go to the 2-hook smaller baits. I like the Megabass X80. I like the Megabass X70. Sometime the Margay. But that Megabass X70, which is actually sort of a trout bait, has been really good for me during a big shad spawn. Just try to stay away from just your larger baits like that. And for the most part, the fish are going to be still setting on the same type of deal. But by going to that smaller jerkbait, you're mimicking the size of shad that are really, getting hit hard by the shad kill. The second thing that I like to fish during this time of year is a blade bait. Any type of the blade bait that you can jig up and down, a small jigging spoon, like a 1/4 ounce jigging spoon. I'll get out on like those secondary points in anywhere between 20 to 30 foot of water and just fish that jigging spoon right off the bottom. And I'm doing it really slow. I'm not snapping it real hard like you normally do a jigging spoon. I'm just sort of pumping it up off the bottom and letting it go back down. And small spoon, small blade bait is a really good way to catch them at that time of the year. The third way I like to catch them, which is something that a lot of people don't understand or don't really consider, considering how cold the water temperature is a crawdad pattern crankbait. A lot of times, for whatever reason, when you have a big shad kill, super cold water, a lot of the times this happens towards the end of winter like we are right now. You don't really get those big giant shad schools in the middle of winter because the water temperature overall has not started to cool down that much. But in late winter, that's a lot of time when you get the shad kill. And these fish in late winter and early spring, they're wanting to move shallow. It's in their nature and in their rhythm to want to move shallow. And I've done really good during a shad kill, going about halfway back up into the creeks and find the steepest bank that I can find in the creek, whether it be a bluff bank, a 45-degree angle bank. If the lake that you fish has a lot of gravel on it, trying to get on those gravel banks that have a break on them real sharp off the bank, and parallel on those steep banks in the creeks with some type of crawdad pattern crankbait that'll run anywhere between 6 to 10 feet. That's another way to catch those population of fish that aren't as affected by the shad kill as the ones out on the main part of the lake. But the main thing about it is just realize that the fishing's going to be tougher. It's going to be a little bit tougher during shad kill. That's just the nature of it. It's just temporary for the most part. The shad kill doldrums that I sort of call it, they're going to last, a couple weeks, and then it's going to start getting a little better. A lot of those shad are going to start sinking to the bottom. They're going to die. They're not going to be becoming food for the bass as much. They're going to be becoming food for like catfish, for all the different type of catfish species, drum, that type of stuff, the scavenger type fish, and the bass aren't going to go for them quite as much. The bass are only going to feed on these shad kill shad if they're moving for the most part. So like I said, they don't last forever in that cold water. But right now we're going to be going through an epic shad kill. It's going to be probably one of the biggest shad kills we've had, you know, in decades in this part of the country, and even down into Texas. So get prepared for that. But anyway, that's my 3 main tips: is go to a small jerkbait, go to a blade bait or a small jigging spoon. That's if you're fishing the main part of the lake, or go up in those creek arms and get on the steeper banks with a crawdad pattern crankbait. And that's going to be the way that you're going to overcome these shad kills that are coming up right now. So anyway, hope that sheds some light on it, and hopefully this weather will start warming up a little bit and we can get back into our boats, because man, I'm sort of sick of being, you know, in the house and not being able to do nothing right now. The boat's all snowed in. So anyway, hope you guys are doing good. We'll be back later with another tip. See you.